brothers and sisters everywhere in the world. Welcome to a new episode of Life Choices. Today it's the third and the last episode of life planning. We'll be completing the concept of planning for your life. But I really have a question for you. Did you plan for your life? Did you start? Did you even think what I'm going to do tomorrow, what I'm going to do for my children, for myself, for my future? These are very important questions you need to ask. In the first episode, we spoke about an intro of the concept of planning. And the last episode, we spoke about more technicalities into planning and how to plan your life, how to do it specifically step by step. So, in this episode, we'll be continuing more steps about how to plan to your life. But again, did you plan to your life? This is a very important question that you need to ask yourself. Are you accepting to be just a regular person, going to your work every day, do some very, very simple stuff in your life? Or you need your life to be unique? If you want your life to be unique, to be a unique person, then you need to start to plan for your life. You need to ask yourself, did I plan for my life? Yes or no? If the answer is no, then you have to follow us. If the answer is yes, then you have to sustain it. And when I remember, actually, when I see that God ordered us to plan for our life, we have to find a methodology, and methodology always comes with a plan. In this episode, we'll start with more brief about what we have been discussing last episode, with more details and more technicalities. And by the end of this episode, you will know specifically, in details, how to plan to your life and how you have it written on paper, with forms, with knowledge, with everything. And starting from next episode, we'll have a new idea, so stay with us. So, see you back.
Dreams and goals, many mixed emotions in my heart and soul. For some I made a plan and did the best I can. If God wills, things can happen. After all, I'm just a man. Choices, chances, dreams and goals, many mixed emotions in my heart and soul. For some I made a plan and did the best I can. If God wills, things can happen. After all, I'm just a man.
Dear brothers and sisters, welcome back and a new episode of Life Choices. So first I would like to welcome my dear guests. So first we'll start with Mr. Ismail. Welcome to the new episode of Life Choices.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
so Abdullah?
Thank you for
welcome.
having me.
Yeah, honor is ours. Mr. Ahmed, welcome.
Welcome, thank you very much.
So Mr. Ahmed, Mr. Abdullah, you have been the second episode and third with Mr. Ahmed in the concept of life planning.
Yes.
And it's our first time to have Mr. Ismail.
Yes,
So-
exactly. Sure.
So we'll start a brief of the last episode, reviewing more technicalities on how to plan to your life. We've been discussing this in a group discussion, but we want our audience to know it in specifically, how they can do it with pen and paper, because we agreed that if it's not with written in a pen and a paper, it will be just thoughts in your mind,
It's
and
not
perhaps
planning.
it will not be planning,
Yes.
just thoughts. And when they are just thoughts, actually will be forgotten.
And we forgot it. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we'll start to view the technicalities of life planning and how to plan your life. So if you please have the number 2, slide number 2, please. If we please to have slide number 2. Yes. So if we see, this is the point A, and above the point A, this blue schedule, which is the SWOT analysis. How to get SWOT analysis? We get it over the data or the information we get from the society, from our experience. Sometimes we need to know some economic data about it, right?
Yeah, sure.
So shall we please still have slide number 2? We're still discussing it. Yes. So we see, yes, this is point A, and your target or goal is at point B. And this line between A and B, we consider 3 years. Why not more than 3 years? Because these days, the events, the economic events and the political are so fast.
Yeah.
So we cannot guarantee 5 years and more without changes. It will be very, very hard. So we keep it 3 years are fine. And these are the, we can say the pillars Your plan will be upon these. Actually, in the corporate world and business, they have it only on 4 pillars. And they call it, when they start to manage the plan, they call it balanced scorecard. They have financial targets, they have people target, and people when they start to train and raising the bar of the talent of the caliber there. And then they have the market, when we speak of the market share, etc. And the last one when they speak of sales, etc. These are the balanced scorecard. So, can we have the next emotion, please? These are the pillars. Yes. When you plan for your life, make sure that you have a calendar to tell you what will you achieve and when. And it should be monthly calendar or weekly. It depends on the activities you're going to do. But you should have a calendar in order to measure your success. Did I did this or not? Because if you just plan, you will tell yourself one day, all right, I will do it, I will do it, I will do it, and you will never do anything. Yeah. So it has to be on a calendar to tell you that on March 31st to 15, I'll be accomplished 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
All right? So, shall I have the next, please? Yes, this is the SWOT analysis, because we said when you determine your current state, which is point A, and your vision or your dream or your goal, which is point B, we have to do SWOT analysis. We spoke about this last week, right?
Yeah. Right,
yeah.
So here is the SWOT analysis. You have your strength. Your strengths are things you can control that are on your side. They are, we can call advantage. Okay, and you can control it, like your network, your capabilities, your knowledge, if you speak more than one language, for example.
Your tools that will help you to achieve the goals
Yes.
you're going to. Yeah.
And the most important thing in it, that you can control it. It's in your hand, all right? And so, shall we please stay with the slide? No, the previous one, please. Yeah, the previous one, the blue, the black and white table. No, the previous, not the next, please. Yes. Freeze on this, please. So, the first one, the upper left, the strength, and then the weakness. The weakness are the disadvantage in you that you need to come over. You need to shore them up. Maybe you have a weakness, for example, that you don't have good sense with numbers. Your English language is not that good, and the courses you need to take, they are all in English. This
Yeah.
could be a weakness.
Yeah.
And it's in your hand to turn it into strength. Right?
Yes.
Good. And then, on the lower left, are the opportunities. The opportunities, and by its name, it's an opportunity. It came to you from the sky, you have nothing to do with it, and it will serve your goals. They are not in your hand to control. These are something external. You cannot control it. In business and in the corporate world, when they speak out the opportunities, for example, like changing in the market prices to their favor. This is something they cannot change, but it's an opportunity that came to them.
Yeah.
And the last quarter, which is the threats. The threats are negative points, like weakness, but the difference that you cannot control. Like protests, for example, economic crisis. These are threats. And I see that the intelligent person who is really planning for his or her life, they start to read the information through the news, and they start to make some deductions. It will not be 100% correct. If it is 60 to 70% on the individual level, it will be perfect. But you have some time to see or to have an eye in the future. How to have an eye in the future unless you have information and you start to make your brain to analyze this information. Say, I expect that by the year 2017, through the data that I know now, I think 1, 2, 3 will happen. So you start to make deductions that will serve a decision that you're going to take. Right?
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Sometimes like the smartphones. When they
The
can
smartphones.
yeah,
Yes.
like 10 years ago, no one knows that. So
Yes.
the shift in between like this product to be in the
Mhm.
market and to use advantage about this
Yeah.
is something that one need to think about it.
Yes.
Right now, for example, like the petrol, like the oil thing. Some people
Mhm.
right now are speaking about the new, like resources for
Yes.
for
New energy
yeah.
resources. Very, very
So
correct.
it's- yeah,
Yes.
to make this analysis
Mhm.
definitely can
Yes.
help you.
And sometimes, and this something that we'll speak uh, about tonight, because sometimes when you have an idea, but maybe it is not applicable these days,
Yeah.
and sometimes when you start a new idea or a new business or started really to plan your life, you have obstacles. Sometimes you face people to tell you this will never happen.
Yes.
But I
They tell
remember
you
a
it's
very
not
good...
realistic.
And
Yes.
that's one of the main points, you know.
Mhm.
Some people have their plans, you know, they want to achieve something specific, you know, in their life.
Okay.
But the problem is you keep changing from one place to the other. And the moment you change your plans, it means you are going to begin other plans, you know, from the bottom, you know.
Yes.
So it's always difficult for people, you know, to be able to make achievements
Yes.
when they try to move from one area to another. For example, if I want to become a doctor, you know, you expect me to be studying medicines, you know.
Okay.
So due to some constraints, maybe financial or maybe some problems, people could just move from that area to another field. And the moment you leave that field, you go to another field, which means you are going to begin, you know, from the bottom, you know. So it gives you some problems, maybe because this is not actually what I want to become, but due to some problems, maybe political problems or maybe financial problems,
Yes.
then I move to these areas. Definitely, I'm going to start, you know, so it will be difficult for me actually to make achievements.
Yes.
So this is one of the major problems actually many people face,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, because of changing from one extreme to another. You know, you find yourself that you are just flying there between, you know, the two distances. You cannot get to anyone, the end
Yeah,
of
yeah.
anyone. So it's
Very correct. I
Yeah.
totally agree with you. But, sorry, you know, the greatest challenge that I always face, sometimes you have changes in the financial situations, political, but the greatest is when someone or the people, they don't believe in you. This is your greatest challenge because it
happened with me, by the way.
affects when you believe in yourself. Sometimes people, they have doubts. We
Yeah.
all had doubts.
And you're surrounded by millions of people who discourage you.
Mhm.
Yes.
And you find most of them are your relatives, friends, etc.
yes,
But I see it is like the fuel. Turn it from negative to positive as a fuel and a challenge that you reach your goal. I remember myself when I was in my primary school. And this is
Long
something
time ago.
very, very long time ago, Abdullah.
Mhm.
I'll tell you a very, very interesting story about it. In primary school, I was not good at school. I was not that amazing student. And in Egypt, the first language is Arabic, not in English.
Of course.
One of the biggest problems was the English language. It was a dilemma at this time
For you.
for me
Mhm.
to study the English. And my parents and my friends, they were suffering with me to understand the English.
You hated the language. You hated the subject.
It was not just hated the language, but it was so difficult. I didn't understand it. The teachers, they were not that talented
or-
in order to educate me well in
Yeah.
English.
I just want to say that because it's important for me because I'm an English teacher. You just want to say that the first impression was bad because of your teacher.
Maybe the teacher, maybe I didn't study that
Yeah,
hard,
yeah.
but
But-
I was very bad in English language.
There is also, you know, I've been studying languages, you know, so I know the difficulties of studying languages, you know.
Mhm.
The schools actually, sometimes you receive the information there, but the problem, you have to practice this, you know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And if you look at Egypt, it's an Arabic-speaking country, you know. So whenever you go out of the school, which means you will not get anyone to communicate
Yes,
with
there's
in
no
English.
practicing.
So there is no practicing. So people have these problems, you know. Even in my country, Sierra Leone, for example,
Sierra
or let's
Leone.
say I live in Kenya, for example, you know,
Oh,
then
wow.
I'm going to study like French
Mhm.
or Arabic. It will be very difficult for me to be able to you know, to evaluate myself because
I can only do this in the school.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's why I think for those who listen to the program, it's better if you are learning these languages, try to have someone outside there, maybe a friend, make communications, like calling. You can, it improves you.
Mhm.
But if you depend on the school and you know that the country that you are living in, you are studying this language, it's not, the language that you are learning is not a spoken language there, it's very difficult.
Of course,
So-
Ismail, because when I think about it, and I remember when I was not that good in English language and not good in school, I used to be an interpreter when I was in college, and I was the youngest professional interpreter in Egypt, almost. And my specialization was economic interpreting, which is one of the very, very
So
difficult.
yeah.
So imagine when I was not that good in school and I became the youngest professional interpreter specialized in economic in Egypt.
Mhm.
Can you imagine it?
Wonderful.
This
That's
is what
really-
I'm speaking of.
That's really good.
They see it's impossible. And my relatives and my family, they were the first to tell me, forget about the English language, it's not yours.
Yeah.
And I tell you, when I was in college, I met my teacher who taught me English when I was in my 5th primary school, which was the most dilemma year in English language. And I met her. I went to the school, and I started to remember the
Old
the
memories.
events, yes, the memories. And I met her, and she told me, I remember you. You are Ahmed. Yes, the worst English language student you have. Yes. Wait, what are you doing now? What is your profession? I told her, yes, I'm an interpreter. She said, what?
Well,
Interpret.
of course,
I'm an
surprising.
interpreter.
Yeah.
And same happened in math. When I was in my prep, I had a teacher in math, and he told me, Ahmed, forget about math. You are not into it at all. And he made me really, really disappointed about this. I met him, I think, 3 or 4 years ago. He lives by, I think, couple of streets away from me. And I met him by sudden. Hey, his name is Mr. Muhammad. I met him. Hey, Mr. Muhammad. Hey, Ahmed, how are you? Good. What are you doing now? I told him, yes, I'm a strategy and economic consultant. Economic and strategy? What?
Does that has any relation with math?
Yeah.
At all. It has a relation with math and
Yeah,
numbers.
I'm just saying for him. Yeah.
For
Guess
him,
what?
When I met my teacher, sure, I respect him as a teacher, fine.
Yeah.
But I exceeded his level in math and all the calculations he can know by years. Very, very long distance between
Yes.
my
And he was
mentality
telling
and
you
him.
just
Yes.
forget about it.
Because when I think about this, nothing is impossible.
Yeah.
Really,
Yes,
really,
yes.
nothing is impossible.
I just need to
Right.
get back to the SWOT analysis word.
I will have an example on
Yeah,
this.
I just need to say something about
Sure.
your weaknesses and your the threats.
Mhm.
You have to start in front of the mirror and look at the mirror, and now you know that you're weak at something. For example, let's take your example that you were bad at English.
Mhm.
Now I'm bad at English, so now I know my weakness. Now I know my problem. This is the first step to success. That you know where your problem is exactly, and to start dealing with it.
Mhm.
Now you are very good at English, and you
I was the
you were
youngest.
yeah
The youngest
at some time in the past you were an interpreter, so that's very good.
Mhm.
So you just stand in front of the mirror. Now I'm going to deal with this. I'm going to deal with my problems and solve them according to a plan also.
Mhm.
And for the threats, you just need to be flexible. You have threats. You always are surrounded by threats.
Yes.
You just need to stand for a while and think about the threats. Now, there's a danger here that may hinder me and may stand as a barrier against my plan.
Success.
Yes, against achieving success. So you just need to think and to think about it and to how can I say it? Yeah, you just expect.
Mhm.
You expect. There's no mark, there's no sign about it, but you just expect that something may happen to you.
Yes.
So whenever it happens, you are flexible enough to deal with it.
Yes.
Yeah. So flexibility is a very important element. You just have a plan, and according to this plan, you work according to this plan, and some problem happens, and it's out of your will. So no, that's my plan. Okay, but this problem, how are you going to deal with this problem? So you just need to be flexible and to change. Some changes may happen, and you have
This
to be
is
flexible
correct.
to change
This is very
according
correct,
to
but
the
I see-
circumstances. I mean,
This is very correct. It's a very valid point. But I see what is more important than it is when you fall down, you have to stand up again.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is the key element that I have experienced myself that made me standing on the level that I'm in now, on my professional level, I mean, as strategy and economic consultant. I fell down many times, but I always stand up. It's like when you fall down, you're titanium. There is a song called Titanium, by the way.
Yeah.
yeah.
Speaking something like this, you shoot me down, but I'll never fall because I'm titanium.
Yes.
Yes, you have to fall. When you fall, you have to stand up again and consider yourself, yes, titanium. Nothing hinder you back. Nothing makes you fall down. Right?
And you
That's
should
true.
expect that you fall sometime.
Of course.
Yeah,
And you should
precisely.
accept it because some people when they fell down, they consider it's like the end of the world.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, come on.
Yeah, falling is not failure.
No.
Yes, sometimes it's a fuel, energy, push to the next step. Right?
Yeah.
So we'll have a quick example for the SWOT analysis for the individual level. Shall we please have the third slide? The example of the SWOT analysis, the one after the one we were just discussing. No, next please. Yes. If we freeze this for a second, this is for our audience. This is an example of the SWOT analysis on the individual level because SWOT analysis always being used for companies. But this is an example for the individual level. So shall we have the next, please? Yes, this is when we speak of your goals. We are speaking about this, but this is an example for you to know as our audience. Shall we have the next, please? And this when we were speaking last episode about how to set your goal. It has to be a criteria called SMART. Here it is. Specific, measurable, attainable, time framed, etc. Shall I have the next, please? Yes. This is the form that had to be on your wall and you see it every day. This model that we're speaking about in terms of strategic planning called OGSM, it's one of the strategic planning methods and it's also called one-page strategic plan. This method is being used by top companies like GE, Mitsubishi, Honda, top companies in the world and some of the Fortune 500 are using this methodology in terms of strategic planning because it's very applicable, easy, and down to the action. Not just lots of words in terms of strategy. So if we see the objective, which is the letter O, stands for objective. I left it blank because each one has different objective.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But we are all united towards one objective.
The success.
This is what should be.
Yeah.
Success in delivering the message of Allah. And everyone should do this on his own or on her way. I mean, Ahmad, you work as a teacher, and I work as a consultant, right? So, when you excel at your work and at every aspect in your life, you are delivering the message of Allah because you are working within a frame which is the methodology of our Holy Quran,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So these are the boundaries. And you have to work and walk within these boundaries and excel, right?
Yes.
So if you continue with the slide, please. We need to freeze it. Next. Now the previous one, the table. Yes, we freeze this, please. And then the goals. I wrote some goals. These are an example because we spoke last episode that when you are 20 years old, your goals will be different when you are 30, will be different when you are
Yes.
40, when you are 50. These are phases, life phases, and each phase is totally different. You are more mature, you are more experienced, you face lots of things, your objectives or goals are different, all right? So, and then for This episode will speaking of the strategies, and these are the actions you are going to do in order to achieve these goals. And then the measures, how to measure your progress.
Yes.
Because sometimes we don't know how to measure it. Yes. Okay? And then the last column will be speaking with more details, but we'll leave it for now. And please try for our audience, please, this is the paper that you need to have on your wall and write down your strategies and look at it every day. All right? Because when they are just thoughts, we know that it will be forgotten.
Yes.
Right? So this is the form, please. This is the shortest and the correct way to plan your life well.
Okay, but how can these papers be available to our audience?
It will be on the episode on YouTube. You can have it.
No, I
Yeah.
mean,
Print
okay,
screen and
the paper itself.
No, you mean the paper?
Yeah.
Actually, I'll check if we can add it on the website or have it as an Excel or PowerPoint file. Yes, no problem at all. And it's very, very easy for
that'd be a good idea.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure. All right. So we'll go for a break, and please don't go anywhere. We'll come back again, continuing on the strategies and measures. See you.
Let's start from where they started. Who are they? The companions of the Prophet ﷺ. When they started learning the religion of Islam, they started with the Aqidah, the belief system, faith. Brothers and sisters in Islam, dear viewers, the Prophet ﷺ spent 13 years in Mecca teaching that generation the belief system, the Aqidah. Aisha radiallahu anha confirms this by saying, the first things which were revealed from the Quran was matters of Aqidah. Who is Allah? Jannah, paradise and hell. Jundub ibn Abdullah al-Bajali, may Allah be pleased with him, said, we learned the belief system, we learned the Iman, we learned the Aqidah, then we learn the Quran. Then we learn the Quran. Brothers and sisters in Islam, nowadays, a lot of our cultural practices, a lot of our societal norms are against our belief system. And the reason why we're falling into this, because we did not start from where they started.
لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك لا شريك لك إن الحمد والنعمة لك.
Why is Hajj so important?
Allah the Almighty said in verse number 97 of the third chapter of the Quran, which is known as Ali Imran, He said, وَلِلَّهِ عَلَى النَّاسِ حِجُّ الْبَيْتِ مَنِ اسْتَطَاعَ إِلَيْهِ سَبِيلًا تابعوا بين الحج والعمرة فإنهما ينفيان الفقر والذنوب. Follow up performing Hajj after Hajj and Umrah after Umrah. So what is the first step? Ihram. The first pillar is Ihram. What does Ihram mean? What does it entail? Hajj al-Ifrad, many of the local people do Hajj al-Ifrad and others because they're exempt from offering the Hajj or the sacrifice. It doesn't require Hajj. So when you say لبيك اللهم عمرة وحجة, that's called Qiran. And you do the rites of Umrah and you do not take off the Ihram condition. Rather you continue until you finish the Hajj. So Al-Hajj and Al-Umrah and following up between Hajj and Umrah for those who can afford it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives their past sins or whatever sins in between.
لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك لا شريك لك.
Welcome back, our audience, and for the second part of Life Choices for Life Planning 3 and the last episode and the concept of life planning. So when we come back, we come with a question, very important question with you, Mr. Abdullah.
Yes, right now, as you just discussed in the previous 2 episodes about how to plan and how to set goals and how to make it specific and this analysis and these forms.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, inshallah, if I know my goals and I just planned it in paper for me.
Mm-hmm.
So the next step is, how do I achieve these preset goals that I'm looking for? How do I do it?
Good, very important question. Mm-hmm. Did you see in the paper we're just seeing, you saw that your goals, you set 1, 2, or 3 or 4 goals. So these are like the visions that you want to achieve. How are you going to achieve it? Yes, thank you. If we see it, the goals are on the left, extreme left. In order to do it or achieve these goals, you have to have strategies that are the actions you are going to follow, to implement, in order to achieve these goals. So strategies are the actions.
Strategies are
the actions you are going to take in order to achieve the preset goals.
Mm-hmm.
All right? Mm-hmm. So how to perform these strategies?
Yeah, how to implement it, how to use it.
And first, you need to write it down in order to know it. Because sometimes you will think of a strategy that is not right, but when you write it down on a paper and you complete all the strategies, you think again, no, this one is not, this is not its right order, no, I don't need this one, I need to improve it, etc., in terms of action that you are going to take, right?
Definitely, yeah.
So, how will you write your strategies? First, you have to write it down as actions. And what I prefer, if you have a mentor, you have to consult him or her on these strategies. Mm-hmm. Because the mentor will always give you some guidance and will direct you right. And when I say a mentor, a trusted mentor, someone you trust him or her on your life. All right?
You just mentioned the last episode that everyone should have a mentor like to discuss.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Me, myself, I have a mentor. All right? And it didn't come suddenly as a mentor. It took years with this person to consider him as officially my mentor.
Of course.
All right? So, did we know that how to...
The methodologies to write it down and think about it again and then to consult.
Yes. All right?
Definitely.
So, we answer your question. But I have a very important question, and this for you, Mr. Ismail. What are the challenges or the obstacles that faced you before when you planned for everything in your life?
Actually, I've done too many trials in my life in order to achieve success, and most of the time is the time that, I checked in order to do something, when I'm going to do something, like I feel like I'm going to complete this in 2 or 3 months, but due to some other problems, that the time will not be enough for me to accomplish, so I always have this kind of problems, the time is very much important, whatever we do, because as you mentioned in the beginning of the episode, that it's very much important for someone to have the time, you determine that I want to do something specific within 3 years. So now, if not only saying that it's already done, I mean, in order to go through this 3 years to do the thing that you want to do, to be, to not go out of track. That's the problem. And I remember when I started learning Arabic, actually it was 1996. And there was a bloody war in my country, Sierra Leone, And
in Sierra Leone?
Sierra Leone, yes.
Blood Diamond, huh?
Yeah, Blood Diamond. So I did not start learning as like going to a teacher. No, I did that. I was, so interested in trying to know things about, like Islam and things about Arabic, because I started my education in a Catholic school, so nothing of this, of this was actually available there. So I started, learning the translation of some very simple things, So it took me 2 years, actually 2 years, and my hometown is maybe the happiest place in my country. Every Saturday there are dances, clubs, everything. So I prefer not to go anywhere, not to do anything. In the evening, I just from school I come home, I just keep reading this translation. So I became very much interested in reading. Mm-hmm. So I said I met one of my cousins. I told him, I want to learn Arabic. He said, well, how can you do this? You don't have even the foundation. So I told him, but if I'm interested, I'm going to do all that is possible to make sure that I make achievements. He said, okay, no problem. So I was sent to an institution that's it's very much well known for Arabic learning. So I went there and then I started, and I was like very happy because I wanted to know about Arabic. I wanted to know about, I always say that if I'm going to go to the Arab countries, I really have to speak their language. And also about Islam, it's a religion that goes together with the language. Yeah. Imagine the Quran itself is written in the pure Arabic language. So which means if you understand Arabic language, it will help you to understand the book itself. So I started, learning. But yet, there was another thing that happened because the war was so tense that nobody could continue doing things in a space of 1 or 2 years. So we had an invasion in my own town. Then we moved to the first city, the capital, Freetown, and then everything, I went back to square one, All right. And because in the city there everything is expensive, education is like it's sold. Mm-hmm. Except for some specific areas or institutions that agree to give you free education, or else you have to pay. Even to stay you have to pay. So yes. It was a very, very much amazing experience. But what I do believe is that's so important in anything we plan, the time.
Time.
Yes.
Yeah.
The ability alone is not enough.
Yes.
If I'm able to do something, that is not enough. The time, I have to make sure that I respect the time.
Yes.
Now we are talking about like the timetable, having a timetable that, okay, every morning, for example, I'm going to read at least 20 pages or 10 pages. If I'm studying like Spanish, like my friend is doing, okay, all right. I'm going to read 10 pages. Okay, that's every morning. Mm-hmm. But if it happens that today I don't read, this morning I don't read because there is a problem, there is a possibility that I'm not going to read tomorrow and after tomorrow. And then when I get this grace, this long period without going back to read, and then the things that I've studied, and I'm going to start to forget about them, then I said, wow, I think I'm not going anywhere. I just keep, I'm just in the beginning. So what I should do is just to forget about this, and then I do other things. And then this is the biggest problem for people, because if you plan, then you back out of your plan, without accomplishing it, you go for another plan, you will apply the same method there because you do not control the time.
If you abandon one, you're going to abandon the next.
Yes, so if you don't control the time that you have, you move to another area, the same thing will happen. Everybody has a problem with time anyway. Everybody has problem with time. So, but we have to try to respect the time. If you want to do, for example, I want to read 50 pages a week. Okay. Try to read 50 pages a week. If it is not possible, at least 45.
This is correct, and this is why we have in the criteria of our goal, we have the element and the SMART criteria called time frame or time bounded. So some people, sometimes they don't have the time management is not that, they are not so good at managing their time. And it happens. I was not so good at managing my time before. Mm. But this always comes by training. In the very beginning, you will not be able to be a master in planning your life. We are taking it step by step. Yes. So you have to respect the time, and if you have the essence from the heart to achieve your plan and respect the time to achieve it, you will do it. You will have obstacles, yes. But at the end, you will do it. And I believe that the more obstacles you will have, the closer your goal is very close to you. This is what I believe through my experience. And the more obstacles, the more your goal will be precious or high.
Well, just back to your question to my
Ahmed.
to my brother, Ismail. I'd like to say that you approve. He's really good in dealing with the obstacles. You know, he thought about changing his the whole atmosphere, because when he was speaking about his city, and dancing, and it's completely away from doing anything in your plan. And for time management, I'm really too bad in managing my time. I used to be, actually, but now I'm starting to be.
We're all that now.
I started to change this after a course. It's just a methodology course I took 6 months ago. I didn't know how to plan my lesson. You have a class and you have to make your lesson plan. It's something I didn't used to do. But after I knew how to plan your lesson and how to think about time management, now I have a lesson plan in my. It's a handout of my lesson plan in my hand.
It tells you what you will say at what time and how long does it take.
I'm right inside the class with my students, and there are lots of tasks to give them, and lots of things to do inside the class. And according to my lesson plan, only according to my lesson plan and according to the handout that was newly created by me. Okay, now I really I'm starting to feel how happy I am in managing my time, because only you have a plan. It's just a lesson plan. So we reflect this to the broader meaning. Planning, it's not just your lesson, but planning your life. If you have a life plan, not a lesson plan. If you have a life plan and you have the time management, just to make a column of time management, you have a task now. Have a task tomorrow. You have a task next week, for example.
Yes.
Now you have a time. You have this point, managing your time and your life plan. It will be. You will do it. You'll manage your time, because only you planned it.
Yes.
You planned
But I have a question concerning your lesson plan.
Yes.
And this is for Mr. Abdullah, if you answer me, please. Yeah. What if Ahmed doesn't have the lesson plan and he has a lecture to give?
If he's in my school, I'll fire him.
What will happen in the class?
In the class, because I already used to make some classes, but I'm not a professional teacher like Ahmed. When I just go in the class and teaching Arabic, and then, okay, let's take this lesson, and then we keep just saying about it. If it is finished, we keep just to the next. If it is not, we just continue.
Yes, the audience will be lost, by the way, in during the session.
We can on the same lesson do whatever it takes till it's finished. If it is not, we can continue. But by the end of the class, or after 2-3 classes, the same thing, you will find yourself, did you achieve what you actually want to teach this student to be qualified, to be well prepared for his exam by the term, or did you actually just come in and sit in and by luck finding some information teaching the students? So I do believe I just managed what Ahmed did. I need to know what my student needs, because maybe I'm teaching him something that he doesn't need.
And this is part of the planning.
Of course. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So everything in life that it has a plan.
Yes.
Correct?
So if a teacher plans, that will be a good teacher.
Yes.
And
speaking of the what we are speaking of, life planning, and I got to know about what he said. He has a lesson plan, which is same like your life. Your life is like a lesson.
Yes.
No plan, so you will be in a mess.
Yes.
So, of course. So I won't fire you, don't worry.
And when we speak of the obstacles, sometimes I see the weakness. When we spoke about the SWOT, everyone has a weakness. Some people, they are not good at managing their time. Some people, they are sometimes frustrated. Some people are not patient. Some people want everything quick in their plans.
That's
all right.
Really something I really for myself, because I want everything in the same time. I want to achieve 1, 2, 3, 4.
This actually,
as you said, the Mahmoud call last episode,
yes, like Mahmoud, our the friend of the program, he said he has many goals, But when you have many goals at the same time, it's like when you have 3 balls in your hands, 4 balls. Will you be able to have 4 footballs at your both hands?
Difficult.
Of course, one will fall.
Yes.
Because you will not have the 4 balls and stay. You have to walk.
No, and you can say four balls on on the pitch.
floor.
How many balls do you have to kick? You have just 1 ball to kick.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Yes. 1 ball to kick.
Yes.
So everyone has some obstacles, internal obstacles that I call weakness in the SWOT analysis. All right. And if we see it, I call it always the vital few, because there are some skills that you are not good at it, but they can make your plan fall down. You can turn it into hell. And this is what I call the vital few. And I'll explain later what is the vital few, where it came from.
Few.
Yes. The vital few are simply some few things, but they are measure of 80% of the problems.
Okay.
It came from a rule called 80-20, which is the Pareto chart or Pareto rule. This rule tells you that 20% of the causes are the reason for 80% of the problems. All right? This is called the vital few. And we'll be speaking more about this and how it has some calculations, numerical calculations. And we'll have it during the some later episodes, because we'll be speaking about some statistics and some personal finance that we'll use this rule for. And believe me, this rule applies on everything. It started with economics, but later the experts, they discovered that they can apply it everywhere. So if we brief again, starting from the first episode, speaking of life planning and what we discussed today concerning your strategies and your measures. Your measures will be discussed in the opening or the beginning of the next episode. We'll have a real example like what we did this time. And then we'll start to move another step. Now we had the frame or the mindset of the planning.
Yeah. Yes.
And concerning this will be the next episode, how to implement it step by step and everything on the skills you have to get, etc. So unfortunately it's time for the program. First I would like to thank our dear guest for the first time, Mr. Ismail from Sierra Leone, and I love your country. It's a beautiful country, Mr. Ismail.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. Mr. Abdullah and Mr. Ahmed, really thank you so much for the episode. Thank you for our audience, and thank you for your time with us. So please stay with us for the next week. We'll have a new concept, which is not life planning. It will be total new episode, new idea. So follow us next week, same time, and thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Chances, dreams and goals, many mixed emotions in my heart and soul. For some I made a plan and did the best I can. If God wills, things can happen. After all, I'm just a man. Choices, chances, dreams and goals, many mixed emotions in my heart and soul. For some I made a plan and did the best I can. If God wills, things can happen. After all, I'm just a man.